Returning from a grueling business trip, I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion wash over me as I exited the taxi at the embankment. The city was alive with the sounds of the evening rush, but my mind was solely focused on the surprise I had planned for Carter. It had been a long week, and I was eager to share my decision to refuse the inheritance from my distant relative, hoping it would show him that our family mattered more than money. I almost never used Carter's car during my trips. It was safer that way. Besides, he was always complaining about how my driving would ruin his precious car. It was a half-hour walk from the embankment to our home, and the setting sun's golden rays reflected off the calm surface of the river, casting a serene glow over the city. As I walked, I took in the evening air, letting the cool breeze and the faint aroma of flowers from the nearby gardens wash over me. My mood lifted slightly. The inheritance had seemed like a blessing, but I had decided to refuse it out of respect for Carter's pride and our relationship. I believed we could find another way to handle our financial troubles. Approaching our street, I saw Carter's car parked in the driveway. I quickened my pace, excited to finally be home. But as I got closer, I heard his voice raise in agitation. My heart pounded. He wasn't alone. Curiosity got the better of me, and I edged closer to the open window. The conversation inside made my blood run cold. "I'm telling you, Sherry, we need that inheritance. Without it, we're finished. The business is sinking and I can't keep borrowing money," Carter said, his voice tight with frustration. Sherry's voice was smooth and confident. "But what if Isabella refuses? She's stubborn, always playing the martyr." I clenched my fists, anger boiling inside me. How could he discuss our private matters with her? And how dare she talk about me like that? "She'll refuse, all right," Carter replied bitterly. "She's already mentioned giving it to that cousin of hers, Michael. Can you believe it? Over my dead body will that happen. I need that money to keep everything afloat." My heart sank. This was the man I had loved and trusted, the man I had been willing to sacrifice an inheritance for, just to show him my support. I had heard enough. I turned away, my mind racing. The inheritance wasn't just about money, it was about trust, respect, and loyalty, all things Carter seemed to have thrown away. I needed time to think, to process this betrayal. The taxi driver glanced back at me as I climbed out of the car. "Need any help with your bags, ma'am?" I shook my head, forcing a smile. "No, thank you. I've got it." He nodded, tipping his cap. "Welcome home." Home. The word fell hollow now. I watched the taxi drive away before turning towards the house. The air was cool and crisp, a stark contrast to the turmoil boiling inside me. As I approached the house, I saw Carter's shadow through the window, pacing back and forth. The conversation drifted out to me, each word a knife to my heart. "I just don't get why she's being so difficult." Carter's voice was strained. "We need this money, Sherry. Why can't she see that?" Sherry laughed softly. "She's too busy playing the saint, always thinking she's better than everyone else." I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat. This couldn't be happening. Not after everything we'd been through together. I turned and walked away, my steps heavy with a mix of sadness and anger. My mind was made up. There was no going back now. Determined to avoid a confrontation, I changed direction and headed towards my mother-in-law Natalie's house. My heart ached with betrayal, and I needed the comfort of someone who would understand. Natalie had always been a source of wisdom and warmth, and I hoped she could help me make sense of the chaos my life had suddenly become. The walk was longer than I remembered, or maybe it just felt that way because of the weight of the thoughts swirling in my mind. I couldn't shake the image of Carter with Sherry, their words replaying over and over, each repetition slicing deeper into my trust. When I finally arrived at Natalie's house, the familiar scent of jasmine greeted me. The garden was well tended, as always, and the sight brought a small measure of calm to my frayed nerves. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door, my hand trembling slightly. Natalie answered almost immediately, her eyes widening in surprise. "Isabella, what a pleasant surprise. I didn't know you were coming back today." I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi, Natalie. I finished up early and thought I'd come see you and Ryan." Natalie's gaze sharpened, her maternal instincts kicking in. "Come in, dear. You look like you could use a cup of tea." I stepped inside, the warmth of the house enveloping me. Ryan came bounding down the stairs, his face lighting up when he saw me. "Mom, you're back." I scooped him up in a hug, holding him tightly. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm back. I missed you so much." We settled into the kitchen, where Natalie busied herself making tea. I watched her, grateful for her presence. Ryan chattered about his day, his innocent excitement a balm to my wounded heart. But Natalie wasn't one to miss details, and she soon turned her attention back to me. "So what's really going on, Isabella?" she asked gently, setting a steaming cup in front of me. I hesitated, my eyes filling with tears. "It's Carter, Natalie. I had overheard him talking to someone." He's been hiding things from me, things about our finances and other things. Natalie's face hardened with concern. What kind of things? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. He's in deeper financial trouble than I thought. He's been relying on the inheritance from my uncle to bail out his business, and he's been seeing someone else. Natalie's eyes widened in shock and then narrowed in anger. That snake. How could he do this to you? And to Ryan? Natalie reached out, taking my hand. Isabella, you don't have to go through this alone. We'll figure something out. You and Ryan can stay here as long as you need. Thank you, Natalie, I said, my voice cracking. I just don't know what to do. I thought refusing the inheritance would show Carter that we could manage without it, that we were strong enough together. But now, Natalie squeezed my hand reassuringly. You're stronger than you think, Isabella, and you have Ryan to think about. We'll get through this, one step at a time. Ryan tugged at my sleeve, looking up at me with wide eyes. Mom, are we staying with Grandma for a while? I ruffled his hair, managing a small smile. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to stay with Grandma for a bit. How does that sound? His face brightened. That sounds great. Grandma makes the best cookies. Natalie chuckled softly. Well, I'll make sure to bake a fresh batch just for you, Ryan. As the evening wore on, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. With Natalie by my side and Ryan's innocent joy as a reminder of what truly mattered, I knew I could find a way through this. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since overhearing Carter's conversation, I didn't feel entirely lost. The next morning dawned with an eerie stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I had spent a restless night tossing and turning, haunted by Carter's betrayal and the uncertain future that lay ahead. The warm, comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee finally coaxed me out of bed. As I made my way downstairs, I found Natalie in the kitchen already up and preparing breakfast. She looked up and smiled warmly, but I could see the worry lines etched deeper into her face. Good morning, dear, she greeted me, her voice soft. How did you sleep? I forced a smile. I've had better nights, but I'm okay. How about you? She sighed, placing a plate of toast on the table. I didn't sleep much either. I kept thinking about everything you told me. We settled down at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the curtains. Ryan was still asleep, giving us a rare moment of quiet. As we sipped our coffee, the silence was broken by a soft groan from Natalie. She clutched her chest, her face contorted in pain. Natalie, are you okay? I rushed to her side, panic rising in my throat. She nodded weakly, trying to catch her breath. It's just a little pain. I'll be fine. Don't worry. I wasn't convinced. This isn't normal. We need to get you to the hospital. Natalie shook her head stubbornly. No, Isabella. I'm sure it's nothing. I just need to rest. But I wasn't taking any chances. Please, Natalie, let's go just to be safe. After some coaxing, she finally agreed. I quickly got Ryan ready, explaining that Grandma wasn't feeling well and we needed to take her to the doctor. He nodded solemnly, sensing the seriousness of the situation. The drive to the hospital felt agonizingly long. I kept glancing at Natalie, who sat pale and silent beside me, her breathing shallow. Ryan clung to my hand, his eyes wide with worry. Mom, is Grandma going to be okay? Ryan's small voice broke the tense silence. I squeezed his hand reassuringly, trying to keep my own fear at bay. Yes, sweetheart. The doctors will take good care of her. When we finally arrived at the hospital, the staff quickly ushered Natalie into an examination room. Ryan and I were left in the waiting area, the sterile smell of antiseptic mingling with the low hum of medical equipment. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached us, his expression grave. Mrs. Harris. I stood up, my heart pounding. Yes, that's me. How is she? He gestured for us to sit down. Your mother-in-law has a heart condition. She's experiencing severe angina, and we need to run some more tests to determine the best course of action. But I assure you we're doing everything we can. I nodded, my eyes filling with tears. Thank you, doctor. Can I see her? He smiled kindly. Of course, she's resting now, but you can sit with her. Ryan and I followed the doctor to Natalie's room. She looked frail and tired, but she managed a weak smile when she saw us. Hey, Mom, I said softly, taking her hand. The doctor says you're going to be fine. Natalie squeezed my hand gently. I'm so sorry to worry you, Isabella. I didn't want to make a fuss. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. Don't apologize. We just want you to get better. Natalie looked at Ryan, who stood by the bed, his face pale with worry. Ryan, come here, sweetheart. He approached hesitantly, and she reached out to stroke his cheek. You're such a brave boy. Everything's going to be okay. I promise. Ryan's eyes filled with tears, and he hugged her gently. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, my dear, Natalie whispered, her voice choked with emotion. As the doctors continued their examinations and Natalie rested, I felt a mixture of relief and fear. The woman who had always been my rock now needed my support more than ever. I vowed to be strong for her and for Ryan, to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same courage and resilience she had always shown me. The hours stretched on, and I sat by Natalie's side, holding her hand and reassuring Ryan. We were a family, and no matter how much Carter had hurt us, we would find a way to get through this together. After Natalie was settled into a hospital room for observation, I took Ryan home. His small hand felt fragile in mine as we walked through the hospital corridors, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of protectiveness. My thoughts churned with the events of the past day, the weight of betrayal pressing heavily on my chest. When we got home, I tucked Ryan into bed and kissed his forehead. "Good night, sweetheart. Try to get some sleep. We'll visit Grandma again tomorrow." He nodded sleepily, his eyes filled with trust. "Good night, Mom. I love you." "I love you too, Ryan." I watched him drift off to sleep, the innocence of his slumber a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I made my way to the living room, intending to sit and gather my thoughts, but my gaze fell on the stack of mail on the entryway table. One envelope in particular caught my eye. It was from the bank. Curiosity piqued, I opened the envelope and pulled out the statement. My heart skipped a beat as I read the contents. It detailed a significant loan taken out against Natalie's apartment. My mind raced, piecing together the fragments of Carter's conversation with Sherry, the financial troubles he had tried to hide from me, and now this. I dialed the bank's number, my hands shaking. After verifying my identity, I asked about the loan. The representative confirmed my worst fears. The loan had been approved months ago, and the funds had been used to prop up Carter's failing business. "Is there anything else I can assist you with, Mrs. Harris?" the representative asked politely. "No, thank you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I hung up and sat in stunned silence, the reality of Carter's betrayal settling over me like a suffocating blanket. Just then, the door creaked open and Carter walked in. His face lit up in surprise and then wariness as he saw me. "Isabella, you're back early." I stood clutching the bank statement in my hand. "Yes, Carter. I came back early, and I've discovered a few things." His eyes flicked to the paper in my hand, and a flicker of panic crossed his face. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, anger bubbling up inside me. "I overheard you, Carter. I heard you talking to Sherry about the inheritance, about the financial troubles. And now I find out you mortgaged Natalie's apartment without telling me." Carter's face turned a shade paler. "Isabella, I can explain." "No." I cut him off, my voice trembling with emotion. "You lied to me, Carter. You've been hiding things from me, and now you've put Natalie's home at risk. How could you do this?" Carter stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "I didn't have a choice, Isabella. The business was failing. I needed the money, and the inheritance wasn't enough." "You should have told me." I shouted, the pain of betrayal making my voice sharp. "We could have figured something out together. But you chose to deceive me. You chose to betray me." He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry. I thought I could fix everything without worrying you." "Worry me?" I echoed, my voice breaking. "You've done more than worry me, Carter. You destroyed my trust. And now I don't know how we're supposed to move forward." He reached out, but I stepped back, shaking my head. "Don't. I need some time to think." Carter's expression was a mix of regret and desperation. "Please, Isabella, let's talk about this." I turned away, tears streaming down my face. "I can't, Carter. Not right now." I retreated to our bedroom, closing the door behind me. I sank onto the bed, the weight of everything crashing down on me. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, each one more painful than the last. The man I had trusted, the father of my child, had betrayed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Carter had made choices that had far-reaching consequences, and it was time for me to make some choices of my own. I would protect Ryan, I would protect Natalie, and I would find a way to rebuild my life from the ruins Carter had left behind. The night was long, but as dawn approached, I felt a newfound resolve. The road ahead would be difficult, but I wasn't alone. I had Ryan, I had Natalie, and I had the strength to face whatever came next. With that thought, I finally allowed myself to close my eyes, drifting into a restless sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but I was ready to face them head-on. The following morning dawned with a sense of grim determination. I knew what I had to do, but the path ahead was far from clear. I dropped Ryan off at school, his innocent smile giving me a fleeting moment of peace. Then I headed to the hospital to check on Natalie. When I arrived, I found Natalie looking better, a hint of color returning to her cheeks. She smiled weakly as I entered her room. "Good morning, dear," she greeted me. "Good morning, Natalie. How are you feeling?" I asked, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "A little better," she admitted. "The doctor said I need to take it easy for a while." I nodded, relieved. "That's good to hear. You need to focus on getting better. We chatted for a while, our conversation drifting from Ryan's school projects to the latest hospital gossip. It felt good to have a semblance of normalcy, even if it was fleeting. As I prepared to leave, I decided to take a walk along the riverbank to clear my head. The embankment was a favorite spot of mine, a place where I could find solace and clarity amidst the chaos. The cool breeze off the water was refreshing, and the sound of the river flowing steadily was soothing. I was lost in thought, watching the ripples on the water, when I heard a voice behind me. "Excuse me, ma'am. Could you spare a moment?" I turned to see a man standing a few feet away, looking a bit disheveled but not threatening. His clothes were rumpled, and he had a tired, almost desperate look in his eyes. "Yes, can I help you?" I asked cautiously. He nodded, stepping closer. "I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Robert, and I'm in a bit of a bind. I just need a little help to get back on my feet." Something about his tone, the genuine plea in his eyes, made me pause. "What happened?" Robert sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's a long story. I was investigating some fraud for my insurance company and things went south. I ended up here with nothing but the clothes on my back." I studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Let's sit down. Tell me more." We found a nearby bench and Robert began to recount his story. He had been working undercover to expose a network of fraudsters who were scamming insurance companies. His cover was blown and he was poisoned by one of the criminals, leaving him stranded and vulnerable. "I managed to get away, but I've been struggling ever since," Robert explained. "I've been trying to piece together what happened and find a way to expose them, but it's been tough." His story resonated with me. I could see the parallels between his struggle and my own fight against Carter's betrayal. "I'm sorry to hear that, Robert. It sounds like you've been through a lot." He nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Thank you for listening. I just need a little help to get back on my feet and continue my investigation. I believe I can still make a difference." I thought for a moment, then made a decision. "I can help you, Robert. I have some resources that might be useful, and maybe, in turn, you can help me." Robert looked surprised. "Help you? How?" I took a deep breath and told him about Carter's betrayal, the financial mess he had left behind, and my struggle to protect my family. As I spoke, I realized how much I needed someone on my side, someone who understood the fight ahead. Robert listened intently, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he leaned forward. "Isabella, I think we can help each other. I have contacts in the legal and investigative fields. If we work together, we can expose the fraudsters I was investigating and use that leverage to deal with your situation." A sense of hope sparked within me. "That sounds like a plan. But first, let's get you back on your feet." We exchanged contact information, and I gave him some money to help him get started. As we parted ways, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Meeting Robert had been a chance encounter, but it was one that might just change everything. I headed back to the hospital, my steps lighter than they had been in days. I had found an ally in Robert, and together, we would fight to reclaim our lives from the chaos that had engulfed us. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a while, I felt like I wasn't walking it alone. Over the next few days, Robert and I worked tirelessly to piece together the evidence we needed. Our makeshift headquarters became my kitchen table, cluttered with documents, notes, and Robert's laptop. He had managed to contact some of his former colleagues, who were eager to help now that they knew he was alive and still on the case. One evening, as Ryan was doing his homework in the living room, Robert and I sat surrounded by papers reviewing our findings. "This is it," Robert said, pointing to a series of bank transactions on his screen. These transfers linked the fraudsters to a shell company used to launder the money. I leaned closer, studying the data, and this shell company is connected to Carter's business. Robert nodded grimly. "Yes, it looks like Carter got involved with these people to try and save his failing business, but instead of saving it, he dug himself deeper into their illegal activities." A chill ran down my spine. So not only did he betray me, but he also entangled us in a criminal network. Robert sighed. "I'm afraid so. But we can use this information to expose the whole operation. They'll take him down and clear your name." I looked at him, feeling a mix of gratitude and determination. "Let's do it." The next morning, Robert and I met with one of his former colleagues, Janet, who worked in the legal department of his insurance company. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s, with a reputation for being a bulldog in a courtroom. Janet spread the documents we had gathered across her desk, her eyes scanning the pages quickly. "This is solid evidence," she said finally, looking up at us. "We can take this to the authorities, but we need to move carefully. These people are dangerous." I nodded. "I understand. What's our next step?" Janet leaned back in her chair, tapping her fingers together thoughtfully. "First, we'll need to secure a warrant to access more detailed financial records. That will give us the full picture and help us nail these guys. Robert, you'll need to testify about your findings and the threats you faced." Robert nodded. "I'm ready. Let's do whatever it takes to bring them down." Janet looked at me. "Isabella, your testimony about Carter's involvement will be crucial. Are you prepared for that? A surge of determination welled up inside me. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes to protect my family and bring justice. Over the next few days, Janet filed the necessary paperwork, and we worked with the authorities to gather the remaining evidence. It was a tense time knowing that we were getting closer to exposing the truth, but also aware of the dangers involved. One evening, as Robert and I were reviewing our progress, my phone rang. It was Carter. "Isabella, we need to talk," he said urgently. My heart pounded. "There's nothing to talk about, Carter. I know everything." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "You don't understand. They're after me. I made a mistake, but we can fix this together." I clenched my fist, anger surging through me. "No, Carter. You dragged us into this mess. Now, I'm going to get us out." I hung up, my resolve stronger than ever. The next morning, Janet called with news. "We've got the warrant. We're going in tomorrow morning." Robert and I exchanged a look of relief and determination. "We'll be ready," he said. The following day, we gathered at Janet's office with a team of investigators and police officers. It was a coordinated effort, everyone aware of the risks but committed to bringing the criminals to justice. As we moved to the location of the shell company's office, I felt a mix of fear and determination. This was it, the moment we had been working toward. The raid happened swiftly. Officers moved in, securing the premises and arresting those involved. Robert and I watched from a distance, our hearts pounding. Janet approached us, a triumphant smile on her face. "We got them. They're all in custody, and we have enough evidence to ensure they won't be getting out anytime soon." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Thank you, Janet. And thank you, Robert. I couldn't have done this without you." Robert smiled, a glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes. "We did it together, Isabella. Now let's make sure they pay for what they've done." The legal process that followed was arduous, but with the evidence we had gathered, the case against Carter and his associates was strong. Carter, realizing the gravity of his situation, tried to negotiate a deal, but the authorities were relentless. As I sat in the courtroom, listening to the verdict being read, I felt a sense of closure. Carter was found guilty of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The others involved received similar sentences. Outside the courthouse, Robert turned to me. "It's over, Isabella. You did it." I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "No, Robert, we did it. And now we can finally move forward." With Carter's betrayal exposed and justice served, I knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but I also knew that I had the strength and the support to face whatever came next. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. And that, I realized, was the most important victory of all. The courtroom drama behind us, the next chapter of my life began to unfold with a mixture of relief and trepidation. Carter was out of our lives, his sentence serving as a stern reminder of his betrayal. Yet the scars remained, and the path to healing and rebuilding was only beginning. One morning, as I prepared breakfast, Ryan sat at the kitchen table, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Mom, does this mean Dad's never coming back?" I paused, setting down a plate of pancakes in front of him. "Yes, honey. Dad made some bad choices, and he has to face the consequences. But we're going to be okay. We have each other, and that's what matters." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad we have Grandma, too." I smiled, ruffling his hair. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Natalie had been a pillar of strength through the ordeal. Despite her health issues, she remained a source of wisdom and comfort. Her home had become our sanctuary, a place where we could begin to piece our lives back together. One evening, as I sat with Natalie in the living room, she reached out and took my hand. "Isabella, you've been through so much. I want you to know how proud I am of you. You've shown incredible strength." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thank you, Natalie. I couldn't have done it without you. Your support means everything to me." Natalie squeezed my hand gently. "We're family. We'll get through this together. And remember, this is a chance for a new beginning. For all of us." With those words in mind, I began to explore new opportunities. The inheritance I had initially planned to refuse now became the cornerstone of our future. The mill and stables were in good condition, and I realized they had the potential to become a thriving business. One afternoon, as Robert and I walked around the property, I shared my vision with him. "I want to turn this place into something special, a place where people can come to relax, ride horses, and enjoy nature. A place where Ryan and I can build a future." Robert looked around, the smile spreading across his face. "It's a beautiful idea, Isabella. I can see it already, and you're not alone in this. I'm here to help, whatever you need." I felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you, Robert. Your support means so much to me. I'm not sure where to start, but I know this is the right path." Robert nodded. "We'll take it one step at a time. First, we'll need to get the business up and running, and then we can focus on attracting visitors. You have a great vision, Isabella. I believe in you." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With Robert's help, we renovated the stables and the mill, transforming them into inviting spaces. We hired local staff, including a skilled stable manager named Emily, who had a deep love for horses. One afternoon, as Emily and I discussed the training schedule for the horses, she looked at me with admiration. "Isabella, I can't tell you how excited I am to be part of this. Your passion is inspiring, and I know this place is going to be a success." I smiled, feeling a sense of pride. "Thank you, Emily. Your expertise and enthusiasm are exactly what we need. Together, we're going to create something amazing." As the grand opening approached, I gathered everyone, Natalie, Ryan, Robert, and the staff, by the stables. I just want to say how grateful I am for each of you. This dream wouldn't be possible without your hard work and dedication. Let's make this place something we can all be proud of. There were smiles and nods of agreement, and I felt a deep sense of community and purpose. The grand opening was a resounding success. Families came to enjoy the peaceful surroundings, children rode the horses with delight, and the mill became a popular spot for picnics and gatherings. Watching Ryan laugh and play with the other children, I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't known in years. That evening, as the sun set over the property, Robert and I sat on the porch sipping lemonade. "You did it, Isabella. Look at what you've created." I looked out at the bustling scene, the laughter and joy filling the air. "We did it, Robert. This is just the beginning. There's so much more I want to do." Robert smiled, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." I clinked my glass against his, feeling a profound sense of hope and determination. To new beginnings. As I sat there, surrounded by the people I cared about and the dream I had brought to life, I realized that this was more than just a new chapter. It was a testament to resilience, to the power of community, and to the belief that even in the face of betrayal and hardship, we can find our way to a brighter future. And in that moment, I knew that Ryan and I were finally home.